Welcome back to Firewatch Business, and we have a, a guest from around the world, Callum Armstrong, who is not only a content marketing agency, he also has done some brand development. And one of the interesting things I saw is that you grew one of your clients from 5,000, grew them 5,000% in 12 months. That's absolutely astounding. But he is pasteandpublish.com. Callum, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us today.
Thank you for having me, Jason. It's a real pleasure to be here.
And you're in New Zealand.
I sure am, in a little town called Rotorua in the middle of the North Island, and it's known for its geothermal activity. So it smells funny here, but it's a really lovely spot. There are a lot of hot pools.
Yeah, I've never been there, but I've heard it's beautiful.
Oh, thank you, thank you. Yeah, it's a lot of tourists. So we're just coming out of the summer season now, and yeah, sort of going back to nice and quiet, which is how I prefer it.
So we pull for Scott Dixon in the IndyCar racing. I don't know if you ever heard of that or not, but
Yeah, yeah,
he's from New Zealand. So
yeah. Right. Oh,
so
fantastic. That's
so
awesome.
that's who we pull for
Oh,
in
brilliant.
IndyCar. So a New Zealander.
I
That's
love
pretty
it.
interesting.
Nice. Cool. Well, I'm really excited to be here today to talk about how we can share tips and tricks and insights for small business owners and people doing a side hustle to really get proper solid foundations. There's a lot of shiny objects around, and I'm sure if you scroll your Facebook or LinkedIn feed, you've probably seen a few of them, and they all are built upon the same foundations. So that's what I'd love to share with you to help set people up for success for the long term.
And that's exactly what we're trying to do with this channel, is to do exactly that. And that's why we have experts like yourself come on to help us, give us some guidance. And that was one of the first questions that I had was, what are the basic needs that a entrepreneur or a new entrepreneur really need to have so that they can get into, when we talk about your specialty of B2B content marketing, what are the basics? Is it habits that they need to pick up? Is it a mindset change? What are those basics they need to have when they come to you and say, hey, we're ready to go with a campaign?
Yeah, so I'm really glad that you mentioned habits because that is a big part of it. And it's something that I've only really fully started appreciating in the last few months, which is look, if you put aside an hour or half an hour a day to marketing and you do something consistently, it might be the best tactic in the world. It might not be, but it's really hard not to succeed eventually if you do that. But I think at a more fundamental level, there's a few problems that I see new businesses facing. They might get hung up on a fancy logo, thinking if I have this color slightly different, or I use a bit of font, or we have the right animation on our video, we're going to get more customers. No one cares about that. If you're a gigantic global company, it might make a difference, but at the start, it's usually a distraction from what's getting results. And the same goes to getting a fancy website without knowing what your customers need. Just start with what you have. So I think at the earlier stages of business, I'd ask if you're in one of two categories. Either you have customers, you're doing a good job for the customers, either they like your products and they're coming back and referring, or they like your service, they're getting results and talking positively about you in whatever way that is for your business. Or you don't have customers yet, or maybe you just haven't quite figured out what you need. If you're in the first group, then what I would recommend is that you start looking at online marketing to set up a consistent way of getting customers, which is something I'd love to talk to you about. However, if you're not in that group, if you don't have a consistent flow of customers coming through, they're not happy, they're not getting results yet, maybe you're just absolutely getting started, don't go and build a fancy website. Don't overinvest in your brand. Just go and talk to people. Find out what their problems are. People might talk nicely to you, and I definitely hope that they do. They might be polite and friendly, but no matter what people say, we're all thinking, what's in it for me? Why should I buy this? Why should I give you my hard-earned cash? And typically with most things, that pretty much everything we buy, we can trace it back to an underlying problem that we had, and we saw that buying your offer can solve our problem to get to the outcome we want. So yeah, if you don't have the foundation in place of customers yet, just talk to people and find out what they need. And that might be changing your offer. It might be that your offer's fine, but it's how you pitch and talk about it. But yeah, and until you've got that in place, the whole online marketing space, it's easy to waste a lot of time and resource.
Yeah, that's very interesting, and I love how you said that if you put that hour and a half into something consistently, uh, it's going to take effect, right? It will have an effect. I mean, that's one of the things we talk about in the DJ business is if you practice 30 minutes every day, you can't help but get better, right? There's nothing out there that's gonna help that. So when you talk about talking to the customers that you already have, if you have those customers, and one of the things that that was very interesting to me is your ideal customer and determining who that was, and at pasteandpublish.com, you talk about that a little bit. Would you mind going in to kind of discover your ideal customer and what that means?
Yeah, sure. One thing I see, especially in more established businesses that haven't done marketing, but they've built themselves out over a few decades, is quite often they'll say, "Hey, we just take anyone that gives us money." And on the surface, it sounds good as a transaction. However, when it comes to communicating what you do, it makes it really, really hard to be compelling. Now, if you imagine, let's say I've got a client who does accounting for online sellers, for example. So they can say, hey, we sell to people that run an Amazon or a Shopify store in the United States doing more than $1 million a year and less than 50 million. So really easy. You can clearly target how you talk about that on your website. You can clearly understand their pain points because that's different from someone maybe doing e-commerce in Europe or selling B2B products or services in Canada, right? And so then you can really hone in on their pain point to make sure that you're a no-brainer for them, you're irresistible for them. The content you create, the way you communicate, even the way you package your services, the way you price it, the way you deliver it, that all depends on the ideal customer. It's really hard to cast a wide net for everyone and get everyone. You just become like not really that relevant to people. And especially in the online space, there's so much content. I think before the boom of ChatGPT, there was like 2 million articles a day being published, and that's just gone up exponentially. So if you want to cut through the noise and you want signal, you need to focus on your ideal customer. But yeah, how you do that is another question.
And it depends on the business, right?
Yeah, definitely.
On how you find
There's a
out who your
few,
ideal customer is.
yeah, and there's a few ways you can. Yeah, there's a lot of factors. I've got a free resource I'd love to share with your audience if that's okay. There's
Yeah,
no
why
email
not?
sign up required. It gives you tips and ideas to think about your ideal customer, ways to book a meeting with them, a list of templated questions to ask them, and then you can basically just follow the process and help to identify it. But I think at a core level, there's something that one of my coaches taught me, Mike from Peaceful Profits. And that is the best way to identify your ideal customer is who is it easiest to get results for?
Mm, that's brilliant.
Go where you're most valued.
Wow. Yeah. And that's one of the things I don't think people understand. Certainly people that are brand new in the business or trying to get it going, maybe trying to get out of their 9 to 5 is how key research is, not just for the ideal customer, but for content and everything like that. Research plays a huge part in what you do, right?
Yeah, definitely. It's like, have you ever been to a party or a social gathering? I'm sure you have, being a DJ, where people are just talking over you and they're talking past you and they've got something in their mind to say and they're not listening to whether you're engaged. They're just talking at you.
Right.
That is what happens in business. It might be on your website. You don't get that feedback loop when you don't do research. And there are way too many websites out there that are just like a glorified online brochure that just are like, we provide X service to Y person, buy from us. It's like, not very sold on that, right?
No, yes, I can see that. Absolutely. So when we're talking about finding your ideal customer and getting that execution of a campaign, are we talking about a campaign? I mean, we're talking about content that's coming, but we're talking about ideal customer, getting your website. I love what you said. your website is an irresistible lead magnet. I thought was very. It's not just a brochure; it is a lead magnet, and it comes to experts to help you do that. You can't go to Wix and do it yourself. Most people can't. I'll say that.
Yeah, I mean, you can certainly try, and all the information's out there if you want to watch videos and read blogs. But you can go down a sink of information. You can also go and hire an agency. That can get very expensive very fast. I used to run a marketing agency building websites, and the numbers add up really quickly, and obviously do a great job. But if you're just getting started, you don't want to outlay 10, 20 grand on a website, right?
Right.
Or maybe you do, and if you do, great. But I provide coaching, which is sort of a middle ground. I'll talk about later. But yeah, I think as far as your website being a lead magnet and not an online brochure, there's a stat that keeps coming back, which is in most markets, on average, 3% of people are ready to buy. So if you just have a sales pitch and that's all your website is, you don't have any way to lead them in, you don't have any content, you don't have any way to capture their emails when they're not ready to buy yet, to build trust, to warm them up, you're hoping that the 3% of your audience that is ready to buy finds you when they're ready to buy. They don't get distracted. We've got such a short attention span these days. And that once they've found your website, they know, like, and trust you enough to get in touch. They show up to the call, or they actually go through the checkout process without getting distracted again or finding someone else that's better, and then they purchase from you. And that's a lot of assumptions to base your financial future on. So what I typically recommend is that this depends on your business. This is more catered towards B2B services, which, if you're selling a low value e-commerce product, this won't be relevant, but we'll do what we call a lead magnet. So it might be a quiz, it might be an assessment tool, it might be an ebook, a checklist, a resource, a white paper, a template, an SOP, anything like that the customer solves one of their key problems that they come to you for, that they would typically be happy to pay a few dollars for, but you get it for free, and that they give in exchange for their email address, which is an overtly giving you permission to market to them. And then once they're on your email list, you then have a series of automated emails that go out in the days and weeks following that nurture them, that give extra value, that build trust, that warm them up to asking for the sale. Now, that's to catch people that aren't ready to buy yet. People are still going to fall through your net. You're not going to get 100% of people. So it's really about filling the holes in your bucket so that you can keep more of that lead traffic. And then with that in place, you can then go out and promote, knowing that I like to think of a fishing net analogy. So if you want to go fishing, first you need to know what you're going to catch and where the fish hang out. So that's like interviewing your ideal customers. Then you want to make sure you've got the right equipment, weave a net or fix the holes in your net, or get your rod and reel ready and get the right bait. And then you want to go fishing. And so that second stage of getting your equipment ready is like having a compelling website that's irresistible to your ideal customers, that speaks to their needs and pain points, a no-brainer lead magnet, a nurture sequence all set up. And so that when you go fishing, it doesn't matter what tactical way you use, you've got the best chances of success.
Yeah, and like in my business, in the DJ business, my ideal customer gets younger every year, right? As I get older every year, uh, because of when they're getting married, which is my main business. My main business is weddings, and so it's very interesting and how quickly I can become completely irrelevant if I don't keep up with what's going on with my customers to determine what music they really want to hear.
Yeah. How do you do that?
I do that with doing a lot of dances with teens and college age kids so that I'm learning what kind of music they want. Plus, I go with each one of my clients one on one, and we talk about what music they want to hear. Right. So, I
Yeah,
mean,
right.
and it's wild and varied. I mean, I've had weddings that they wanted a shag, that old shag like Zook suit boogie back in the day,
Yeah,
and
right.
and then one wanted to make sure I played the main titles of Star Wars, Harry Potter, Walking Dead at the reception because that was what they were into. So,
It's
yeah,
quite varied.
but like you said, I mean, my customer, I have to be in touch with them and finding out their needs, and a lot of that's through Spotify. This
Mm.
Spotify and Apple Music, when they can just send me a playlist of 10 or 15 songs. You give me 10 or 15 songs, I'll make you a playlist that's badass for 3 hours, you know?
Yeah, cool. So that's awesome. I think you've touched on something really interesting there, which is that when you're looking at feedback on what matters to your customers, there's two types, and it's really helpful to distinguish them. One is qualitative feedback. So that is going to your weddings, talking to your audience, talking to your customers, saying, what do you like? What do you what do you care about? What matters to you? How do you like this show? And the other side being quantitative feedback is, yeah, what's trending on Spotify? What are the top songs? How many likes and downloads? In a broader context, what keywords are people searching? What's trending on Google? What's trending on TikTok or on LinkedIn or wherever your ideal customer hangs out? What are the stats? What are the numbers? Who's got the most authority? What are they talking about? What are their trends? And so, really, if you think about qualitative and quantitative, you can zoom in on the individual or you can zoom out on the market. And by looking at both of them, or just depending on how far down your marketing journey you are, you can get a really good picture of what there is. But just because you see that your audience cares about something doesn't mean that you should do something with it. Like, do you want to talk about this? Is this your actual business? Like, is this your brand, your personality? Do you want to go down this direction?
Right.
At the moment, in the content marketing space, everyone's talking about outsourcing all your work to ChatGPT, and I could go on about it, and I see everyone on LinkedIn's just like writing up a storm. And whenever I talk about AI, I get all this engagement, but I don't really like it. Like, I've got an unconventional view on AI, so I kind of I share a bit, but I also ignore a lot of that noise because it's not true to me and it's not true to my brand. So I won't share that stuff.
Do you stream any kind of creativity from AI? Do you ever go to AI and say, do this, and then morph it into what you want? Do you use AI that way at all in your creativity?
Yeah, definitely. There was a study that came out by one of the large consulting firms about how their staff were using AI. And it blew my mind what they said. I think it was McKinsey and Company, but don't quote me on that. And they talked about the mentor and the intern, which is that you can use AI to as a mentor to review your work. So I might be writing a sales page or an article, and there's a title and maybe a paragraph that just I can't. I've got writer's block. I can't find the right words, and I'll say, "Here's what I'm saying. Here's what I'm trying to get across. Here's the audience. Here's the personality I'm trying to do. Here's the message I'm trying to make." And I want to avoid these points. Can you give me 10 different ways of saying this? And then I might select, I like options 2, 3, and 5, but I don't like it because of that. Can you give me 5 more options? And then I'll rewrite it based on that and put it in. So that way I'm getting like world-class copywriting without the amount of time it would have taken. And then the intern's kind of, hey, what's do some research, show me the sources, save my
Mm-hmm.
time, find that information. So yeah, that's kind of how I use it. But that's not to say it's the only way, and it's certainly not to say it's the best way, but it works for me.
Yeah, AI is just crazy. I mean, and it's changing our world night and day. I mean, it's just nuts.
Yeah, yeah. I feel a bit like being a sci-fi nerd. Got a leg up because seeing how they do it on Star Trek or The Orville.
Yeah, exactly. We're already talking about having these. They're really not even robots. Really, they're more of a humanoid kind of thing, which is, that's coming. So it's just amazing.
It's
Uh,
crazy.
I don't understand it at all. I truly don't. But it, something about it's something about the interaction between human to human that's key. And
Mm.
kind of going back to the creativity, because I love marketing. I'm not good at it, but I love it. I've studied it a good bit back in my former days in another company. But the creativity that it takes to come up with a campaign and then fulfill that campaign to the end. You know what I'm saying? It, it needs to have some type of structure and flow. It doesn't. If it doesn't, it kind of really loses traction. Would that be a fair statement to say?
Yeah, there's a lot of disciplines, a lot of systems and processes and checklists can help. Yeah. Oh, there's
Like
a speech
it,
bubble in your head.
yeah, yeah. I use a Mac, so it has these things where I can do this if I can put it in the, and it'll do a thumbs
Okay.
up, or if I do this, it'll do a thumbs down if it's in the thing, and it's
All
just
right.
it's automatic. I got to turn the damn things off, but I don't know how yet. I haven't looked. This is the first time it's ever happened in an interview, but
Oh, fair enough. It's like, am I saying something wrong?
no, not at all. Not at
Yeah, yeah.
all.
It definitely takes, to answer your question, it definitely takes a lot of organization to see a campaign through. And there are systems and processes you can put in place. For example, at the start of a campaign, I'll say, well, what's the ideal customer? What's the overall theme? What are the underlying, you know, media assets or deliverables? So, you know, are we running a webinar with some kind of downloadable lead magnet, a few blogs on our site and other people's sites, and maybe sharing that via a press release and social media, for example. And then we might say, well, we're collaborating with these two partners because we want to tap into their audiences who
Mm.
we have a mutual strategic benefit. And then from there, bringing it to life is a really big black box. So I'll typically say, well, what are the phases? So we might need to plan it first. We might need and planning gets buy-in from our partners. And from there, we need to develop the creative, edit it, get sign off from the various people, and then get out and promote it, and then review and renew and plan the next campaign. So then we might say, okay, there's 3 or 4 weeks for each period, depending on the nature of it, of course. And so then that can all change. You know, we might talk to a couple of partners that we're working with, and they might say, well, hey, our creative team's out of action for the next 6 months. And so we need to change it. But at least with that structure in place, you can change it. If you're trying to shoot from the hip at every interaction, it's so much harder to do anything cohesively, you know?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm an action plan kind of guy, and I think that's real important in how we take advantage of stuff. So on the creativity
Sure.
side, when you're looking at doing this content, or you're not just looking at, you do it across many platforms.
Yeah, I'm more focused on what I call evergreen content. So that
Right.
being a piece of content that you create once that's still relevant for years to come. For example, I have pieces of articles and checklists and downloads I've made for clients 5 or 6 years ago that are still bringing them leads and customers today because we put the time in to do it right and make it evergreen at the start. Now, there's a lot of different schools of thought here, but my school of thought is that instead of, say, putting an hour into a beautiful LinkedIn post or an Instagram reel, and then that being irrelevant in a week, you should put a bit more effort in, make something that's going to last the test of time. And that's what I call primary content. So, you know, it might be a podcast, for example, like this,
Hmm.
and then you can repurpose that. You can turn the key insights from this into a blog. You can take shorts and reels and post them across all your social media channels. You can email that out to your audience, which can be like a newsletter. And so then that one piece of content that you've put extra effort into making really good turns into your whole campaign. And then whenever you repurpose it onto another channel, so let's say it's a beautiful blog on a really important topic for your audience, that might be 5 LinkedIn posts, and it might be 3 other shorter blogs, and it might be an article or two on other people's websites. And then that's going to last for a lot longer. It's going to be, but then when you produce all the secondary content, all the things that are promoting it, it's a lot less effort. You already know about it. You already have a frame of reference and a base of content you can pull from. And then for the user, the person that's actually going through and becoming your customer or becoming a part of your audience, it's a much nicer experience for them than just seeing a post on social media and not knowing where to go from there, because they see a little snippet and then they click, they take the bait, and then they get a bit more, and they take the bait, and they get a bit more, and then they're on your mailing list and they're like, hey, we love you. And then all of a sudden, you know, it's less effort for you and more results for them. And yeah, it's just easier overall.
Yeah, that's so brilliant. Yeah, I need to do more of that for myself because I'm not doing that currently. That just makes sense. Um, just
But hey,
makes
you've got to
perfect
start
sense.
somewhere. Like, I'll be honest, I'm not doing this all the time. I started getting active on LinkedIn maybe 3 or 4 months ago, and I thought, if I do this, I'm going to put it off. And like, there is a bit of planning, there is a bit of work. And so I said, I'll just post some stuff. And a lot of what I'm doing myself isn't following the best practice, but we'll move it to that. So if you're not doing the best practice right now, you're not confident with it, you're not doing it really well, that's okay. But just think about that's where I want to be and what action it's going to take to start testing it. So it might be that you do a podcast and then you try one of these AI tools to snip it up, or you get an assistant to help cut it into some shorts and you post that on LinkedIn. But then you have a Google Drive or a Dropbox folder of all those reels and shorts you posted on LinkedIn. And maybe once you've proven what the top ones are, you can then repost them on all the other social channels. And then the next few podcasts you do after that, you can then have the full structure in place. But you don't have to have Rome wasn't built in a day, and you don't have to have the most smart marketing strategy straight away, because that's almost a surefire recipe for not starting.
I agree. That makes sense. There was one question I had written down that I forgot to ask when we were talking about the ideal client that I wanted to get to, kind of, is that in your business, and I know we've jumped around a little bit here, but in your business, when you look at these kind of things and you're coming up with your strategic plan for your marketing campaign, and do you have, like, all right, so as amongst your clients, do you have, say, okay, well, this ideal client is certain age, certain occupation, certain amount of money they make, all those criteria? Is there a starting block that you start off with? Okay, well, here's these basic criteria for these ideal clients. Here's where I'm going to start with their content. Is it that basic where this is where you start, and then you have to split off to what the details are that you're trying to get them to purchase? Does that
Yeah,
make
good
sense?
question. It's a really good question, and I think I can speak from my expertise, but what I will say is this is a lot different for, say, a consumer brand selling items under $100 than it is for the audience I serve, which is more the B2B service, which is typically higher ticket and more of a relationship. I was watching a video the other day from Gary Vee, and he was
Yeah.
saying, when we target consumers, we might make 50 different segments, like, stay-at-home mums in Indonesia that are home from 3 to 5 p.m. and then we'll test different segments. But that's not how I do it. And I think you need a very large marketing budget to make that realistically work. Otherwise, you can kind of confuse and lose people. I'll typically talk about what's their problem. There's a few different ways you can look at identifying your customer. And so, sorry to bring so many different ways of categorizing people into it. I hope this is useful for your audience, but I like to give people the tools to understand so they can make informed decisions. But I like to think of it as demographics and psychographics. So demographics are, like you said, your age, your income, your occupation, where you live, what qualification you have, etc. And those are things that you can quantify. And psychographics are the attitudes, the preferences, the problem they face, how they feel when they face that problem, what it means for them in terms of their lost sleep at night, what the solution means to them, why they care about their community, where they show up. Are they someone that likes to be at church on Sunday, or are they out motorbiking? All these types of things are the psychographics. And it's a lot more compelling and a lot easier to build your creative around a psychographic than it is around a demographic. Because if you say, "Dear Sir/Madam, are you an 18 to 24-year-old male who likes listening to techno music? If so, come to our event on Friday," versus, "Hey, you're looking for something to do on Friday? This town doesn't have much on, so we're going to put something really cool on at the local pub. We're going to get some awesome DJs in, and we're going to invite your friends, and it's going to be a blast." That's, the pain point in the psychographic. And the second example was, hey, there's not enough to do on in town, and there's no place for young people to gather. And the first one is like very corporate marketing speak. So that's, I know this isn't a perfect answer, and it's a very soft topic with a lot of different opinions, but I just say that look to your customers' pain points, look to actually what sparks their emotion. And, even something really cut and dry, like something really calculated, like hiring a lawyer, still sparks emotion. I hired my lawyer because they give back to the community. Yes, they do a great job. They're local and they're friendly, lovely people that like the Suits off the TV show Suits. And they laughed when I said, "Are you going to sue people?" So I didn't hire them because of their price or because they were targeting my specific company size or demographic. I hired them because they treated me well and they aligned with my values and they made me feel good. And I knew that I could trust them and that they would be there and they would help the community. So, does that sort of help to answer where you were going with that?
Absolutely. And I think a lot of times, and I think part of your point there that I pulled out of there was a lot of new entrepreneurs or people trying to do a side hustle. I'm good at something, baking a cake or baking cupcakes or whatever. And that's what I can do. And people tell me all the time I'm great and I need to start selling them. And the fact of the matter is, there's 20 bakeries in the size of a town of 20,000 people. It's not going to work, right? So, like you said, it may not be cupcakes or cake that there's a pain point that's missing. It may be something completely different in that same realm that you need to be looking at. And
Yeah. And like, don't get me wrong, you can ignore all the best practices and still succeed. It just might be harder for you.
yeah,
It might just be a bit more work. Like I used to have a natural skincare brand and I didn't listen to what my customers wanted. I wanted to sell what I wanted to sell. I had this mission to bring native forest back to New Zealand by creating demand for native plant extracts. And it was all great, but I didn't listen to the market. And so I still sold stuff. I still had customers, but it was just a lot of a much harder slog. I remember going to one market on a Sunday and selling $46 worth of product in 6 hours. Later on, we opened up a retail shop and separate business. And we had, it was meant to be natural skincare and soaps and like wellness products. And there was this little stand of crystals. And that blow up to be 80% of our sales. And I left the business because I didn't really want to sell crystals, among other things. But that basically became a crystal shop. And we found out later that there was this spiritual crystal community in the city we were living in. And 3 crystal shops had closed in the last 18 months. And so we were the only place that could go and get crystals that was open 9 to 5 or 10 to 4. So, if we had said, no, we don't want to do that, that's not our business, we would have still been selling soaps, but it would have just been a hard slog. Just as an example, like it's much easier to listen to your customers. You can push what you want, but it just depends how easy you want to make your life, really.
I mean, all right, so I'm a DJ and a CPA, certified public accountant here, and I do know of a company that did not listen to their customer, and he closed up, and it was sad because his product at first was pretty good, and then he decided he wanted to do his own thing. It was a brewery, and he wanted to do his own thing and make the beer that he liked, not necessarily what his customers were wanting. And all of a sudden, next thing you know, he's out of business.
Mm,
And that's a very
yeah,
capital. I mean, he had a lot of capital tied up in making beer, so it was something
yeah,
else.
that would have been painful. But I also think you need to be a bit reserved about just how much you listen to your customers as well. Like you can over listen and overreact. I've had times when I remember I was at this retreat and one customer said, "Hey, why don't you do this little campaign, this funny campaign?" So I throw a whole lot of money at it and it failed and bombed because I just said, "Oh, one person said it was a good idea, so I'll jump on it." And, there's in my earlier days in business, there were times when I would throw a whole lot of time and resource at something because one person who bought something once said I'd like it in a smaller bottle. So I buy 1,000 bottles and I make this new product. And so make sure that you're actually confident this is what your customers want and need, and make sure that the people you're listening to are actually the people you want to serve, not just some Joe Blogs that happen to walk in the store and buy something.
That's a good point. Well, there's one thing I know we are quickly running out of time here, but I wanted to get to one thing that you started was the Reforestation Fund. And what are your goals with that, and what are you doing with that?
I'm so glad you asked. Now, this is why I'm in business. This is my why behind it all. Obviously,
Yeah,
like, don't get me wrong. I love marketing. I love getting results for clients. And when we work together, I'm committed to your success. However, I got into business to help the environment. Uh, the Reforestation Fund is our product of that. It's actually about to go through a name change because we've rebranded it. Our initial view was that when I was running that natural skincare brand, it was really hard to give back to conservation and environmental biodiversity projects. And there was a whole lot of issues that I'll keep to a minimum because otherwise I'll be talking for hours. But basically, it was really hard for brands, and so I thought, well, I'll make a giving mechanism with my partner on a bench, who that can make it easy for brands to give. And what I found was that the brands that were giving, or the brands we wanted to give, didn't quite understand the urgency of the problem, and the consumers weren't aware enough to actually make it a priority to buy stuff that mattered. And so we were on this cruise over Christmas around Subantarctic Islands, a super remote place, and we decided then to completely change the focus of our charity to make more impact on the environment. So, do you mind if I share what, rather than how it works now, what it's moving into?
Yeah, I know, absolutely. Yeah, I would love to hear about it, quite frankly.
Fantastic. So, uh, here in New Zealand, and I'm sure it's the same in all other parts of the world, but I can't say from experience, there are people that give their time and their resources to help the environment, to help nature. And it might be volunteers that give up their Saturday morning to run a trap line or to plant some trees. It might be people that spend their careers, and smart people that sacrifice better financial prospects and better career prospects to do what matters to them. And these people are the heroes of our generation, in my opinion. Um, but then if I look at, and they know a lot about the needs of nature, but if I look at the rest of the general public who does care and does want to help the environment, the awareness of what's actually happening and what's actually needed on the ground just isn't there. And it's like people in conservation and everyone else is speaking two different languages. And so after going for a few years looking to build this giving mechanism, we realized that actually we need to take a step back and we need to focus on education. So our charity, the Reforestation Fund, like I said, it is changing name soon, is focused on creating videos, mini documentaries, YouTube, short form video, long form video, that kind of thing, to tell the stories of people that are helping the environment so that you can see what they're doing, why they're doing it. And then in the future, we're looking to partner with giving providers and funding mechanisms and community groups so that those that like it can show up and find a local project to volunteer at, or they can find a way to give their money or for their business to sponsor. Even here in the Bay of Plenty in Rotorua, where I live, we've got dozens and dozens and dozens of community groups of volunteers and contractors and part-time staff that give their time. My partner, for example, she works with kiwi, penguins, shorebirds, all this stuff. But most people, even in our community, which is quite environmentally focused, don't even know what's going on in their own backyard.
Mm-hmm.
The people that help the environment are so resource constrained. They're all eating from the same pot. They're all drawing their funds from the same source, that the idea of putting resource and time into marketing and communication is just not, it can't be a priority when you're thinking year to year. And so the big organizations like World Wildlife Fund have all this resource, all the little guys get missed, they lose out. So we want to change that. And we want to shine a light on the heroes of our generation so that they can plan for the next century instead of the next 12 months.
That's amazing. And what makes me so interested in it is that where I live on the Gulf Coast of Alabama, we have 5 rivers that flow into Mobile Bay, and they call that the
Wow.
North American Amazon. And it is so diverse of life. It's just crazy. And then we have all these, and everything flows to the ocean. Everybody knows that. So everything's flowing down these 5 rivers coming into, and conservation of that is so important for us where we live because it's just so diverse. It's just an amazing thing to see.
Wow. And what kind of conservation are you seeing happen in your area?
Well, a lot of it is just trying to clean up the water and making sure that the water from that's flowing down north is cleaner than what it has been in the past. A lot of it
Mm,
is going through. You may have heard in 2010 in the Gulf of Mexico they had a deep horizon blew up and we had a lot
mm.
of oil on our beaches and that kind of thing. So just watching those kind of things to make sure that we have whatever safety is in there to prevent those kind of spillages, those kind of and a proper way to clean it, a proper way to clean up when that happens. It's going to happen, but the proper way to clean it up is almost as important as preventing it in the first place.
Yeah, absolutely. It was and awesome that you're you guys are doing that. That's so cool. It's so funny you mentioned that because we had a similar issue, different, not as big scale, but here in the Bay of Plenty, there was a container ship that crashed onto Astrolabe Reef, the Rena,
Mm.
about 10 years ago. So around the same time. Do you remember that on the news?
I don't. I don't. I'm
Okay,
gonna look
so
it up.
yeah, there's a great documentary called Taking Back Our Beach, but it's just an hour's drive down the road from where we are, and it's part of the charity that my partner's involved in, different charity. And this container ship crashed onto this reef, and then it smashed, and all the oil slicked out, and it was a bio catastrophe. Like they didn't know how many. We have this species of penguin called little blue penguin, Karora, and it's the littlest penguin in the world. It's about a foot long, and we didn't know just how many there were, and we started seeing hundreds of them washing up on the beach covered in oil, and that created this emergency response, and they had like whole entire response teams. Like I think they were trying to keep the public away for health and safety reasons, and the public basically pushed the officials aside and said no. Thousands of people dropped their jobs to come and clean these penguins and seabirds, and it was life changing. And out of that was what the charity Western Bay Wildlife Trust came and got formed from, also from some of the reparations of the container company, and that's what's led to a lot of this conservation today. But the reason why I said that was just you said about finding technology to solve the problems, and that actually sparked a lot of innovation. Like how do you clean a penguin without giving it hypothermia and dying, that kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I mean, it's just, and there's so much stuff that we don't know. We just don't know. And we
Mm.
you know there's no way we know all the species that are in the where all those rivers come into. We don't know them all. There's no way for us to know them all. But going out there foraging for mushrooms is just crazy, and those kind of things.
Cool.
Just it's just a lot of fun. But
Yeah.
we have there's a documentary on the five rivers in the North American Amazon. You can find it. I don't know the name of it. I should, but I don't. But
I'll have a look.
yeah, yeah, it is amazing place. It is amazing. I have a really good friend who's a painter. He quit his job in like I don't know 72 or something. He's an older gentleman, and he said, "I'm tired. I'm going to paint." And he paints fish and crab and all these different things. And when he needs inspiration, he gets in a canoe and goes down the river. So it's an amazing thing to see.
Wow. That's so cool. I'd love to visit one day. Might hit
Yeah,
you up when I'm there.
yeah, absolutely. Please do. You got a place to stay, no doubt about it.
Yeah, cool.
Um,
Thank you. And likewise in New Zealand.
All right. Okay. I may take you up on that for sure. All right. There's a couple more things I wanted to get to before we get off of here. And again, I appreciate your time more than you can know, and it's been super educational for me. And it helps me realize that I got to get my stuff together to do some more organization of my of a strategy. But one of the things on your, or there's a couple of things on your website that I saw that I thought was interesting. Number one is you have a newsletter. Are you still producing a newsletter and sending that out?
So, full paste and publish, we don't currently produce a newsletter. We did start at one a while back, but kind of priorities shifted. However, I do have a newsletter which is a separate business. It's called Improve Your Business, 3 minutes at a time, and we publish a newsletter every fortnight. And each newsletter is about a 3 to 5 minute read, and it focuses on one specific topic, like prioritizing or marketing strategy, or giving the most of the chat GPT or other things. And we'll show you why you should do it, the benefits, and then steps that you can take straight away to get tangible, measurable improvement in your business within immediately after reading it. So we do have that if you want. If anyone wants to sign up, they can send me a message on LinkedIn or contact me on one of the emails or forms or websites, and I'll add you to the list. We're just in the process of launching that now. But so not quite the newsletter you were thinking, but we do have one.
That's great. I saw it on there, and I think that was the one that popped up. I'm not sure,
Right.
but yeah. And then one of the things that you had that was coming soon is the do-it-yourself classes that you had. Are y'all still in the process of developing those?
Yeah, so it's evolved a bit since we built the website, but what we're doing is a program called Evergreen Leads, and why they go with you, what the outcomes they get are, what it means for them, what makes possible in their life, all that type of stuff. We then work with you to improve your website to reflect that so that you're a no-brainer for your ideal customers, to build an irresistible lead magnet, to set up your email marketing system, to set up your email nurtures. If you want to do it all yourself, I will coach you on how to do it yourself and give you feedback and all that stuff. If you don't want to do it yourself, we will then connect you with professionals, copywriters, designers, virtual assistants to do it with you, and so that you can manage them. And I'll show you how to manage them well so that you get the results of an agency at the cost of a freelancer. And then once you've got that in place, we work out how you want to roll out. Do you want to put money into it and grow fast with ads? Do you want to do it slower with content that's more long lasting that you can do more with you? Or is there a different option? And then we connect you with the right people. We help you to build your team, and then we help you to execute on it. So it's quite flexible. It's the first stage is getting your website and your lead magnet and your nurture set up, and that takes about 3 months. So that's stage one of the program. In this stage, you have one live call a week, unlimited access to me for Q&A on anything related to getting the outcome. There's an online training program with video modules and templates and tools and checklists. And then there's a community group, and any future upgrades to the program you get for free for life, and we guarantee the results. So it's just really sincerely, I've done this for people in an agency context, and I really like seeing smaller businesses succeed. And so this is kind of packaging up all that expertise into something that's more compelling at a lower price point that can just help people to get that leg up so that they can set up the foundations for success that allow them to grow long term in the way they want to grow.
And that's exactly what I hope and my viewers want to see is those kind of things that we can outsource reasonably because they don't have time to do these things. They don't have time to research it. That's one of my
Mm.
biggest problems with me that I'm not in the habit. I'm too old to post everything I do on Instagram. Right? I didn't grow up that way. So having somebody help you lead it and get you to a place where you are doing it in more of a streamlined fashion and keeping it top of mind, it just seems like that's what I hope my viewers are trying to get to push their business forward.
For sure, for sure. And look, I think there is a lot of merit in getting a coach. It's something that I don't think is always that often spoken about. When I first started in business, I completely bombed. I failed miserably, to be fair. And eventually I got over the idea that I know all the answers, and I got a coach. And it changed my life. It really did. That really changed my whole entire approach, and I got way better results. And these days, I've got like a marketing coach. Even though I'm a marketer, like there's no reason why you can't get better. I've got a life coach, a health coach, a fitness coach. Like, why not? You can skip all those mistakes, and you can get straight to what works from people that have made those mistakes and they've made the successes, and they can show you where to go. Most things in life, and especially in marketing, aren't super complex. If you just take the right actions, it's pretty simple. The complex part is for going down all those dead ends and those other roads, not realizing where you should go. Yeah, so just helping to avoid a lot of the dead ends and get to the outcome faster.
Right. I mean, and like you said, I mean, the Stephen Covey talks about, iron sharpening iron. When you have your marketing coach helping you, your iron can only sharpen iron, and that's it. And you got to have those kind of people to really push you and get you better. I mean, I use this analogy all the time. It's like playing golf. When you play golf with people who are better than you, it will improve your game. If you play with people who are worse than you, it will pull your game backwards. So
For sure, yeah. And every top sportsman and top athlete and top performer, politician, CEO has their coaches. So if you're serious about getting to the results, it's worth considering. But if you're not ready for that yet, you might not be ready to take it to that level. I'll provide that customer interview toolkit. There's no obligation, no email sign up. Just interview your customers. Just use it, and no cost, just to help you to make sure that you uh, are communicating in a way that's irresistible to the people you want to serve.
and we'll have that link. You're going to share that with us, and we'll have it down there. So or you said to go through LinkedIn, right? How do they get in touch with you if you ask
Oh,
you that?
So I'll send you the link. Yeah, good question.
Okay.
I'll give you the link to the toolkit if they want to click on it. If they want to get in touch, LinkedIn's great. I'm pretty active on there. And also, I'll send through the landing page for our coaching offer in case people want to find out more before having a conversation. And just to be clear, I'm not going to sell to everyone that talks to me. I'll only take you if I think you're a good fit and I'm confident I can help you. So, yeah. And I usually sort of give people feedback on their website or a bit of guidance for free, just sincerely trying to help because, I'd much rather see you go away with some support and we don't work together than to sell something to you that you don't need and leave angry. So yeah, it's just all about doing right by people.
Right. And like you said, you may not one of the thing is that there's got to be a level of commitment. There's got to be a level of
Mm.
commitment on the client you're picking up, because if there isn't, then they're wasting their money, and you don't want to see that by any stretch. And you can't help them if they're not willing to commit and do the things that need to be done.
And I'd say in my 6 years of being a marketer, the biggest thing done for you, done with you doesn't matter. The biggest thing that turns a successful business or a successful potential strategy into a failure is non-commitment from the client. It is when they think, I want this, I might throw some money at it, but I'm not available to respond. I'm not available to action and execute. I'm not available to review the work. And something that can take 2 months takes 15 months. And then you wonder why you're not getting leads. So it doesn't have to be a huge commitment, but the question is, are you willing to make the commitment? And if you are, then, go ahead and do it. If you're not, then I think you just needs to look at the priorities. And if it's a priority, great, make the commitment. If it's not, then maybe it's something that can be done in the future.
Right. Absolutely. All right. Is there anything that I missed that you wanted to touch on?
Um, we've talked about a lot of stuff today, and it's
Yeah, we
been
did.
really fun. I really enjoyed chatting with you. You're a lovely dude, Jason.
Thank you.
Just the last thing I'd say is bit of a bit of a thing that I wish I knew when I first started in business is prioritizing. As you do more to dos get onto your list, more priorities get onto your plate. It's really easy to just span out and feel overwhelmed or just feel like you're treading water. So make sure on a regular basis to say, what are my top priorities that are either going to get me to my result or prevent a risk that will avoid me from my result. And I do this every day. I do it every week, every month, every quarter, every year. Um, and the biggest change in my business result has been prioritizing every single day. I'm not saying you should do like 5 times a day prioritize, but a lot of people will make a plan at the start of the year and they'll just sort of show up and work on that plan and they won't ask themselves, am I still working on the things that matter the most? Remember, the most successful people in the world still have the same 24 hours in their day and they get better results because they're prioritizing. So, yeah, if you want the inside stuff on that, improve your business. Our newsletter goes into a lot of detail on this for free, but just ultimately know where you should spend your time and you will get a much better return on your time invested and getting to your goals faster.
Yeah, what a great place to wrap up. That is beautiful, and I appreciate it. All right, that'll do it, man. If that's all right with you, and again, thank you so much. It means a lot to me for you to do this for me and my little small channel, and as we're trying to get growing, I do appreciate it a lot.
Pleasure. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate being here and just being able to chat.